shining, shining in. I won't forget the day the sun came shining, 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 shining in. I won't forget the day the sun came shining in, shining, shining, shining. I won't forget the day the sun came shining in.
That is how we kick off the show with the late, great Brahu Marketplace is the name of that particular song. And every time we play Brahu, we had pains to say how he is dearly and deeply missed by general South Africans, fans of jazz, political and cultural activists, and even the younger cohort of creatives who he always found time to be in conversation and in collaboration with. How are you doing this afternoon? I hope you are having a great Friday. We've made it to the end of the week. We made it to the end of the week. How quickly this year is flying. It's galloping, it's flying, it's galloping. It's almost the end of May, but listen, we're not complaining nonetheless from our side. We've got lots of show coming your way today for full access. We're going to be catching up with a formidable South African woman. Of course, Barbara Masinga is going to be joining us in conversation, a poet, an educator, mother, an activist, a sister to the late Hugh Masinga. So we're just going to be having a conversation about life, love, family, and everything in between. Also coming up today, we are going to be talking to Marlies van Zyl, who's the CEO of Aspire Art, and South African-born Marlene Dumas has broken the record to becoming the most expensive living female artist with a 246 million rand painting. Can you imagine? Can you even fathom? But these numbers are becoming synonymous with South African painters now. And so we're going to catch up with Marlies around that. And then on the other side of 2 o'clock, it's almost like a full access expanded because yesterday he was part of those being honored at the 100 most reputable Africans for 2025. Brand founder and author Tebe Ikalafeng is going to be joining us on the other side of 2. It is fast approaching 1:15 o'clock on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, right here on SAFM, leading the conversations that move the nation.
Banyana Bus Style are confident nothing will stop their winning mentality, while Richmond United ladies are highly spirited to display a first-class performance. Gauteng is up against Northern Cape. This is the Hollywood Best Super League. Catch the delight of Mzansi's women's football, Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC versus Richmond United Ladies on Sunday 18 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC One and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Do you want to study towards a tertiary qualification but need a flexible study schedule? Stadio Higher Education's distance learning qualifications offer just that. Our distance learning support is designed for your success. 2025 applications to Stadio's range of high-quality, affordable qualifications are now open. Distance learning qualifications are available in law, administration and management, commerce, teacher education, policing, law enforcement, humanities, and information technology. Visit stadio.ac.za and register today. Stadio, a new vision in higher education.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
We are in conversation this afternoon with Barbara Masinga. That is Mom Barbara Masinga, to some of us, a South African poet, an educator, a mother, and an activist. And she served as the ambassador to the United States and France and has held various executive and non-executive directorships, including director of the Standard Bank of South Africa and the South African Broadcasting Corporation, as well as De Beers, an art advocate in her own right. Barbara Masinga joins us this afternoon for Full Access. Good afternoon to you. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine on this bright, sunny winter morning, or autumn morning.
I'm
so impressed with your show. You're having such an exciting afternoon today. Huh?
We really do. We try to keep it exciting and fluid on this side. You know, this is what I think I want to find out from you first and foremost. Because you've lived such an incredible life that has taken you to so many corners of this earth, and you've occupied so many roles. When you sort of sit back and because you still very much are active in a lot of things, when you sit back and you hear the laundry list of things as people introduce you, the laundry list of things that you have done and places you have gone and accomplishments, do you ever, what comes to mind? I mean, do you just for a split second go, geez, I never thought it would take me this far?
No, I always think of the little girl who grew up in Witbank location, Kwakuka, in my grandmother's little house. And it's such a long time ago because I'm 84 years old now.
Yeah.
So that was in the 50s. 40s and 50s, and I'm happy to be a product of South Africa. I think that we have a great country. We've had a hard fighting history with many heroes, but I think we are a lucky generation because we've seen freedom. We may not be happy with all of it, but it's for us to change it. But we've seen more than that. It's been more than just our own country. You know, we are a generation who have seen independence in Africa. Because as we all know, South Africa was the last country, you know, one of the last to get freedom.
Yeah.
But here we are. But I also, as a joke, I will say that I also wonder why people remember everything I've done, but they never mention the fact that I'm the author of a book called Poli Poli, which is about my childhood in Witbank.
You know, funny enough, my team did not forget this. When we were talking about you this morning, they actually made a point to be like, remember, we must talk about Poli Poli and Mom Barbara's love for literature. So whilst we're there, growing up, because if people read your biog, right, they assume you grew up, well, not your biog as per authorization, but what's out there. They assume you grew up in Alexandra, that you were born in Alexandra. Meanwhile, you actually were born in Witbank.
Because I'm Hugh's sister, and many people assume that is all I am. But fortunately, he is somebody who I'm so proud of and who had such a great influence in my life and who was my best friend, you know. So it's so wonderful for me when you came on air and I heard what song you had chosen to play. I just smiled, you know, because he was such a naughty, witty, funny guy, you know, clever guy as well. Yeah, but anyway, this is not about him, but it is about him.
Because you must also have your moments. You know, as you talk about Bri Hugh being a naughty, witty gent, I think a lot of us, especially like younger people in the creative sectors who encountered him, we all have stories, and oftentimes when I play his music, I'll always reflect on a few times when I'd meet him in the presence of Josh, his manager, who I knew,
Yeah.
and he'd always grab my wig and my weave aggressively from the back and go, "Bridget, why are you wearing this horsehair?" All the time, without fail. But what was that like? For you growing up as a young girl in Witbank, in Mpumalanga, when you think back on those years, and I don't know if it was a significant time in your childhood by way of the time spent there, and what it meant to you.
Well, I think that this has happened to all of us in South Africa. There are very few people who can say they are living in the house that they were born in. All of us have moved all over the place, so that Witbank is the foundational place for me, but at the same time, it is just one of the places where I've been, which I've called home. And having been in exile and lived abroad and then exiled after we got freedom by being made an ambassador twice, you find that the most important thing is, I think that we are taught, and that I learned in Witbank, is that wherever you go, you have to make a home, and you do make a home. And as I write my second book, this is the thing that is most impressive in my mind, that I can't grab a hold of a place and say this is home, because I've had so many homes. And, so there is truth in the homily about home is what you make it, Yeah. And I think we South Africans, because of Group Areas Act and forced removals and all of that, and Bantustans and what have you, we learned along the way. We are still learning along the way how to make a home.
That's it's an interesting sort of perspective, because I think a lot of us, we don't think about that. We use the buzzwords displacement but we actually don't think about the fact that so many people, as you've just pointed out, so many people who grew up at the height of apartheid, the places that held the emotional significance within that structure of this is home, have long dissipated. They've long changed and evolved or been erased, from the geography of the country. And we actually, some of us, I guess, are oblivious to that and what that might mean for a generation of people.
But also, the other thing is, for me, growing up there, is the people, mostly women, because women in South Africa, they are like women all over the world, but there is something that distinguishes them from other women, because they have had to be so, I hate the word resilient, but they have been very resilient, because they have been guided by uncertainty. And that is what exile is about too. It's uncertainty. It's temporariness, that your life is made temporary all the time. And you are working towards stability and permanence all the time. And it's really a lesson of life,
Yeah.
That's not, in actual fact, that's how life is. It is a temporary thing, and we are working towards permanence all the time, and adding on top of the ground that has been the foundation that has been given to us, but by those who have raised us.
Absolutely. I came across a conversation you had a couple of months ago when you were just reflecting on South Africa in the yesteryear. And you said, well, and, and you were like, well, it actually, it looked different and it felt different because there were also so far less people.
Absolutely. 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 When we came back from abroad and we came home, I remember, because I'd been living in New York among other places, and I remember I was repeating it. I was with Hugh and I was saying, Hugh, there are so many children here, because I had not seen, living abroad, you don't see children. And I had lived in Zambia, which is very sparsely populated.
Yes.
And I was just amazed every time I turned around. I saw young children. And you can see it, during school-going hours in the morning and in the afternoon. Yeah, there were far fewer people, and it makes a whole lot of difference, how you react to reality when you have fewer people around you.
Absolutely. We are in conversation with South African great. She's a renowned activist, a cultural worker, and author, and of course a diplomat. Mom Barbara Masinga is joining us on the Full Circle this afternoon for a full access conversation as we reflect on all things life, love, politics, and the in between. And I wanted to also get a sort of picture, if one may, of a glimpse inside your household, a glimpse inside what it was like, that parent-child dynamic between yourself and your parents. I'm very interested because I know you were raised politically conscious, but also at the same time, you were raised with a parent who also had an artistic side to them.
Mm-hmm. Yes. We were very, very lucky. My father was a sculptor, and our house was full of books, and we learned about artists like Picasso, Khumalo, South African artists, Serute, and all of those people. Not Serute,
Gerald Sekoto.
Sekoto. But we learned about all those people as children because, it is forgotten. But in the 40s, in many of the missionary schools all over South Africa, art was one of the subjects. And some of our greatest artists in South Africa went to missionary school where they had their first art lessons. And so now you will find that all I talk about is culture because I'm so grateful for the culture that I come from because in my home I was taught not only that I was a Masekela, and where we came from, but I also learned that I came from a great country because my father played music. We played music at home. The song that you sing sometimes that Hugh used to sing, that is called Lizzy. For instance, I remember very clearly that my dad had a record of that song, that we played on the gramophone at home. So, and choral music, after dinner we would sing. My father would take out the notes, as we used to call them, and we would sing as a family different choral songs, and my father was a very serious reader. So there were many books in our home, and those books some of them were religious because we come from a Lutheran religious family, but many of those books were about philosophy and so on, and had the strangest, titles. Like I remember a book called Eyeless in Gaza by Aldous Huxley, I think it was. So it was like that. I grew up in that sort of place. And, for instance, in Alexandra Township, there were Chinese shopkeepers. And my father was very friendly with them, and he used to go and eat there. So he became very interested, for instance, in Chinese art and Asian art in general. So all the time we were learning. The other thing is that my dad was a school teacher like most South Africans at that time. But he, like most South Africans at that time, was doing private studies. Correspondence school, they used to call it. And he was studying to be a health inspector. So as we were growing up and he was working, at different jobs, he was also studying to improve his qualifications.
Very interesting. Mom Barbara, let's pause it there for a second for the headline news, and then we'll come back on the other side and continue our conversation with the great Barbara Masinga.
Thank you, Bridget. On the news headlines, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa says the failure to pass the 2025 national budget is a dark cloud that still hangs over the Republic. The retabling of the 2025 budget is scheduled for next week, Wednesday. Dr. Nandipha Magudumana's legal team say they will study the full judgment and possibly appeal the Constitutional Court. Magudumana's bid to have her arrest declared unlawful has been dismissed by the Supreme Court of Appeal, and Israel is reported to have launched a large-scale military operation in the far north of the Gaza Strip. The Hamas-run health authorities say at least 25 people have been killed. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
We are in conversation with a South African living giant who comes in a pint-sized package, a poet, an educator, a mother, an activist, the author of Poli Poli. We must mention that, and recently awarded an honorary doctorate by the University of Johannesburg. Barbara Masinga joins us on the line, just having a full access conversation. I love these conversations because it's almost like sitting at the feet of your grandparents. And just reflecting on their lives. And I think a lot of us don't give ourselves this opportunity. You're at the grandparent age now, if you're fortunate, maybe even great-grandparent at this point. And I think a lot of the sort of the generations that come after, we don't give ourselves the opportunity to sit at the feet of our grandparents and really just hear life reflections firsthand from you. And really that's where the lessons lie, I think, in the conversations like this, where it's just casual and we're just talking about everything and nothing specific.
Yeah. When we were cut off, I was saying that, as a health inspector, my dad, one of the things he had to know was about poisons.
Yeah.
So he had to know about plants. He had to know about soil, stones, rivers, and things like that, And for instance, he was in charge of the program to inoculate people against tuberculosis when we were living in Alexandra Township, where he was the chief health inspector. So all those things, are culture. And, this is what I argue with people today, that culture is not only what we see performed on the stage or what we see in a gallery. Yes, that is culture. But it is now culture of people who are accomplished. And what we should ask ourselves is, how did they get accomplished? And I think what we are missing in our country is that we have not created the kind of institutions that will enrich, enlarge, and, make greater the culture of South Africa. Because the average child in South Africa does not have access to cultural learning. Yeah. So if you go to town after school or to the township after school, you see children just walking around in their uniforms, aimlessly. in most countries, in many countries, after school, children are at school now doing other learning, cultural, sports, crafts, and so on, And this is what is really missing in our country.
Well, would you say that, I mean, that sounds like one of, I would assume, is an indictment on the leaders past and present, not recognizing the full value and the full richness and the full contribution that cultural consciousness has on a society and its ability to also build and foster a lot of what we talk about, these themes around social cohesion, for instance, are not themes that are driven by political ideology, but themes that find sort of resonance through other commonalities of the lived experience.
Yeah, I think it should be at the center of the country. I would not indict our people. What I would say is that, when we were negotiating for freedom and when we were preparing for new government, there were so many demands on our government. It is not as though this is the single. I mean, it was everything. As we speak now, it is still the same. It's questions of labor, of health, of housing, of water. Everything is a critical need. But it is those critical needs that define the shape of our country. And look at how we are defined by those things today. And it makes a sad picture, and in part, it is because we did not give some weight to a deliberate, conscious program of values, actions, etc., for our people that would make us a better people.
Absolutely. I've not traveled as extensively as you, who's probably on her 30th passport, but I've traveled my fair share, especially on the continent. And one of my favorite reflections is on a trip to Senegal. I had the pleasure a few years ago, just before COVID, to be in Senegal for 2 weeks, in Dakar specifically.
Wow. Yeah.
And it was a work leisure trip with my previous broadcaster. And I came out of there with, a realization from every conversations that I had with folks on the radio and on the streets, the value for cultural identity.
Absolutely. And one way we can do that is, for instance, we must learn how to travel to other African countries. Because if we see there what is happening in those countries, we will not only appreciate the natural and other gifts that we have in South Africa, but it will also help to shape us in a different manner,
Absolutely. I want to give just a quick chance to our listeners on WhatsApp. If you want to chime in on the conversation, 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. You can send through a WhatsApp voice notes, and 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on. By the way, we are live streaming as well on our social media platforms, so you can catch us on at SAFM Radio across all the social media platforms. Let's go to WhatsApp quickly. See what is on your mind there.
And Barbara, as I speak now, I'm busy reading the book written by Justice Malala. Its title is The Plot to Save South Africa. Ma'am Barbara is the character there when she was an administrator in Madiba's office. So, a freedom fighter, a writer. So the question I would like to direct at her is, when did the writing backbite Ma'am Barbara, what a freedom fighter of note. Good afternoon, lovely sister. Hausen from Bradfish.
Haven't heard from you, Khausen, in a long time. Oh, I haven't heard from Abu Khausen in a long time. We've lost connection with Mom Barbara Masigela, but we were also coming to the end of our conversation with her. Are we trying to reestablish? Okay, we're trying to reestablish so we can wrap up the conversation nicely. So in the meantime, let's take a quick break and then we'll come back on the other side.
He's short, loud, and definitely not a licensed therapist, but he's asking the hard questions. It's Heart to Heart with Kevin, the only talk show where the guests spill the tea and Kevin spills the jokes. Real talk, real laughs, and real short host. Heart to Heart with Kevin, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on S3.
TSG believe if they double their efforts, they will close the curtain with huge smiles. But the Reds are on standby to cheers to an incredible season. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Witness TSG Hoffenheim against Bayern München on Saturday, 17 May at 3 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC 3, and on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hey Zama, have you submitted our employer reconciliation declaration?
Oh no, not yet. I thought I'd leave it for next week.
If we comply, it makes it easier for our employees to get accurate tax assessments. It will be even faster now that SARS has the new Easy File Employer version 8. Employers, make tax matters your priority number 1. Submit your annual employer reconciliation declaration by 31 May 2025. Your tax matters. So does your time. SARS, at your service.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
As we come back to wrap up our conversation with Mom Barbara Masigela. Mom Barbara, you didn't hear Khausen on the WhatsApp, obviously, giving you your flowers whilst you can still smell them, but also wanting to know, when did the writing bug begin?
I've been writing since I was a child. We used to write letters in those days. Dear Mama, it is okay here at school. Yeah, all that. I need 2 pounds to go on it. No, so we are from the writing generation. We are not, WhatsApp people.
Yeah.
And we learned how to write a letter. And we used to write very impassioned letters for various reasons, including love letters. The golden cup is broken forever and ever. You know that kind of.
Well, listen, I'm not going to ask you about your first love letter.
I don't remember it. I've had so many.
Things we love. So you say you're working on a second book now. Are you at liberty to maybe just give us a sneak peek?
Yeah, because the Poli was the first chapter of my life, So, of course, I have I want to write about exile and coming back home and what it means. And, of course, it's much, much more difficult because, so much more has happened, and it is really time for us to assess our lives, At 84, that's what you're doing all the time. And it's a big book, and I'm busy writing on it, and it's hard, but I really want to finish it, and complete the circle.
Wonderful.
So that I can write more poetry.
Oh, wonderful. Well, listen, we appreciate the time with you today, and of course the reflections and the stories. And we wish you long life and long health, because we want to have you here in studio to give us the first-hand account of that full autobiography memoir and then come back and tell us about the poems that will expose all of the love interest. But we'll leave it there for this afternoon with you, and have a great weekend. That was Mom Barbara Masinga, and she's of course, an activist, cultural and political activist, and author, and a diplomat, and recently awarded an honorary doctorate by the University of Johannesburg. So when you see her on the campus of the University of Johannesburg, please put some respect on that name and call her Dr. Masinga. It is 1:45. We're going to take a quick reset here, and then we come back. We catch up with Marlies van Zyl, CEO of Aspire Art. Let's have this conversation about the South African-born Marlene Dumas, who's broken the record to becoming the most expensive living female artist with a whopping 246 million rand painting. Incredible.
Being kind to each other is Ubudu.
It's always time to play on Takalani Sesame.
Chetu, do you want to play Market Day now?
Doing things together as a community can be even more fun than doing them on our own.
Amma loves it so much when we can just be ourselves and learn about our culture together.
Tune in to see what makes you special for the all-new episodes of Takalani Sesame. Weekdays at 3 p.m. on SABC2.
What does extraordinary mean to you?
Is it being voted South Africa's most trusted enterprise telco 2 years in a row?
Vodacom Business helps more than 133,000 businesses with AI, cloud, enterprise apps, IoT, and security. One seamless ecosystem. Together, let's build the extraordinary that sustains today and protects tomorrow. Start your journey at vodacombusiness.co.za. Further together, Vodacom Business.
Reigning champions Bafana Style are in a jubilant mood closer to the end of the season. They are enjoying every moment on the summit, but Magesi FC have an agenda to cause an upset. This is the Betway Premiership. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game, Mamelodi Sundowns FC versus Magesi FC on Sunday 18 May, streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC 1 at 4:30 p.m. Also available on SABC radio stations at 5:30 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hi, I'm Khomotso KG Mweketi, and I believe in music's ability to connect, to heal, to remind, and to bring joy. And each week on my Saturday and Sunday show Seasons right here on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, I endeavor to do just that. So join the movement of Seasons every Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's addictive. You might invite a friend. Seasons, only on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, with me, KG Mwekezi.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
So Miss January is Dumas's magnum opus, and it stands at 9.25 feet. That's 2.8 meters tall. This is according to auction house Christie's. And this particular painting went under the hammer by South African artist Marlene Dumas, and it fetched quite a pretty sum, because it fetched $13.6 million. That translates to about 246 million rands at Christie's on Wednesday night. The highest record set by a living female artist. What a wow. We thought we'd catch up with Marlies van Zyl, who's the CEO of Aspire Art. How are you doing this afternoon, Marlies?
Hi, Bridget. I'm very well, and you?
I'm awesome. Thank you very much. Firstly, quite a provocative offering, this one by Marlene Dumas, and I think it's definitely something that has will attract a particular kind of collector, because it's a stop and stare kind of piece.
Yes. Bridget, yes, what an incredible result for a woman artist, and not only a woman artist, but a South African-born artist. But if we can just move to this work, particularly Miss January, and what makes this so special and incredible is that this work particularly was based on a drawing that she did many, many years ago, 30 years ago. She was a child, a young girl, age 10, and she did this crayon drawing of 10 typical models in a Miss World competition. It's beautifully titled. I've seen this drawing, beautifully titled in Afrikaans, Mevrou Wêreld, and it shows 10 countries and kind of almost like the ideal body or figure for a competition like this. Now, Marlene Dumas is very well known for tackling very difficult and complex issues, and one thing she does is, yes, she does paint figures, and especially female figures. And with this work and many others, she basically flipped the script, and dealing with the body politic, she reimagined that original drawing, and this particular work was painted from a Playboy photograph. And it's big, so it's very confrontational, but she paints this figure almost vulnerable and detached. And by that, actually giving a critique on the way women's bodies have been objectified in both media and art. So she's basically re-representing the objectified body. And yes, the sheer size of this work is what also makes it so incredible. But yes, she really did a good job for women artists and South African artists.
No, absolutely incredible. And it's wonderful to also know the context and the genesis of the work, right? Because a lot of times I think when we move through these spaces, these sort of white cubicled spaces where these works are displayed and hung, we don't really get to know the genesis of the work and the story behind it and its evolution. And so to also know that somewhere in the archives of Marlene Dumas' life lies these drawings, done by a 10-year-old child in innocence that came back to revisit the woman in her adulthood, but now layered on with so much more of life's observations and life's journeys that ultimately point to the canvas.
Yes, absolutely. And like I said, she paints women's bodies, and she deals with the body politic, but it's not the body beautiful. She uses bodies as kind of a landscape to project very, very complex narratives. And yes, she doesn't shy away from very, like this work, very provocative images as well, but it does. What makes this work so successful is that it makes you stop and think. And that is what art does. It makes you stop and think at what you're looking at now. And but also, I think the success of this work is the provenance, naturally. It did belong to the Rubel family. They are a prominent collectors duo, a couple. They started collecting from the 1960s. What makes their collection so unique is that they collect contemporary works and they collect diverse global contemporary artists. So they were one of the first families or private collections that really focused on African American art, and then also extended the collection to include other works as well. And so they are very well known. They've got 2 museums in Miami and in Washington. And also, with this being such an important work, since it's been purchased by the Rubel family, it was shown in very big museum exhibitions since 1998 up until 2022. And there has been written about this work so many times. If you look at the literature provenance of this work, it's about 1 kilometer long.
Wow.
So it's always a prime example of any piece that's written about contemporary painting, about women art, gender, identity, all of that. That is basically, that work symbolizes all of these very, very relevant and significant themes.
I would be interested, of course, Marlies, to find out, do we have any idea whether or not, the sort of geolocation of the new ownership of the work? There's always this debate around South African artists and, how we're losing the history of incredible artists because when we go toe-to-toe with international bidders who are bidding in dollars and in pounds, the deck is often stacked against us unless you are a Mutsipe or somebody who can really go hand on hand like that. But do we know if it's returned back to South Africa or it's gone somewhere fabulous in the world? And also the importance of these kinds of works being retained in the country by South African collectors.
So unfortunately, I personally don't know who purchased the work. I've been trying to find out as well. These are the kind of things we do daily. So I'll be sure to let you know once I found out. But yes, that is, it is a double-edged sword for South Africans and South African artists and collectors. Naturally, you want to retain the works in the country. You want to retain the history and the cultural history. But with the works going out, going international, being represented in international museums and collections, we also get that exposure, which then will draw attention back to our country. Because certainly this record, for South Africa, it highlights our ability to produce artists of international stature, and it will naturally inspire greater investment in the region's pool of female talent. This sale and record, also follows the sale of Lisa Bryce's work in March that fetched also just over $6.9 million. So that is a double-edged sword for us, but we do want our artists to do well. We do want to see these works in international museums, but yes, we do want to retain that cultural history as well. That said, with this unique position, you were also saying about, us, needing to come up against, international currency. We at Aspire, we're the only auction house who has ever sold works by Marlene Dumas. You don't get the works in the country. And we have sold 5 pieces between 2019 and 2023. They range from between 1.8 to 7.2 million. Naturally, there will be a price increase if we find other works by the artists in the country. But so to provide to our local collectors at a certain currency, that's also a challenge. But yes, it is very, very hard to come by these works. But, if I travel overseas and you walk into a museum and you see a work by a South African artist or an African artist, you feel very, very proud.
Absolutely.
And, you do hope that attention will come back. And, we also depend on cultural tourism. If tourists come, to come and visit our museums and then also see these exceptional works of art.
Absolutely. I mean, what a pretty penny to fetch, 13.6. And it's wonderful, as you say, that we're starting to see more and more females now joining that list of high-ranking artists or bankable South African artists. Just a quick one as we wrap it up. In our last minute, are we anticipating to see more Lisa Bryce's, more Marlene Dumas getting into the market and really doing significantly well and fetching record prices in the near future?
Well, I certainly hope so. That would be great, and not for the country, but also for our local art market and our business. With the Rubel family collections, I am not sure, the extent of holding of their collection. I do know there's another artist, Serge Alain Tegeka from Rwanda, who's represented in their collection. And then we also work with many other international collectors, and I do hope that within the near future, and of course it will be there because we are the new frontiers. African contemporary art is the new frontier, that we will see stronger results, and specifically for women. This result from Aline Dumar, again, it just reaffirms the global recognition of women artists, their work and what they have to say. And then again, what's most important to me is to see that it helps correct historical imbalances in the art market.
Absolutely.
And, women artists still, there is a lag with prices achieved, prices being asked for. And I see this almost as a cultural moment. I'm very, very excited also to see what corrections there will be made in the market.
Absolutely. Marlies, always a pleasure. And thank you so much for unpacking some of that information for us. That was Marlies van Zyl, who's the CEO of Aspire Art. It's just gone 2 o'clock. It's time for us to catch up with Ondela and the news. Then we'll come back on the other side. Tebe Galafeng is going to be joining us.
Thank you, Bridget. Top stories at 2 Magudumana's lawyers to study Concord ruling and men arrested for raping and impregnating an 11-year-old girl. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good day. Dr. Nandipha Magudumana's legal team say they will study the full judgment and possibly appeal at the Constitutional Court. Magudumana's bid to have her arrest declared unlawful has been dismissed by the Supreme Court of Appeal. NPA has welcomed the judgment, which has been delivered this morning. Magudumana's attorney, Machini Mutlong, says they remain resolute despite the judgment.
We are dismayed. We should be dismayed naturally, but despondent, I don't think so. We still remain resolute. We still have faith in our case, that we have a meritorious case. Obviously, we have yet to receive the judgment. We'll have to study the full judgment, get to understand how the court arrived at the conclusion that it did.
Eastern Cape police are investigating a shooting incident in Ngobo that left 3 people dead and 2 injured. The incident occurred at Mangweni location where family members were mourning the death of their relative. Police spokesperson Sipokazi Mawisa says the victims were shot by 2 armed men who stormed their home. Mawisa says 3 people aged between 30 and 50 years old were fatally shot, while another 2 were rushed to hospital. The motive behind the shooting is unknown. Mawisa says police are following all leads.
The police have mobilized their full resources to trace and speedily locate at least 2 suspects who are believed to be involved in this heinous and terrible incident. Information in police records, it is alleged that at about 7:30 in the evening, 5 family members mourning the death of a relative were shot by 2 armed men who stormed their Mangweni location home in Dalasile in Ngobo. 3 victims aged between 30 and 50 were fatally wounded, while the other 2 sustained gunshot wounds and were rushed to hospital.
This following story may offend sensitive listeners. The mother of an 11-year-old girl who was allegedly raped and impregnated by a family friend in Boksburg, Gauteng, doesn't want the perpetrator to be granted bail. The mother of the young girl says the 29-year-old suspect is a flight risk and should remain in custody until trial begins. The suspect is expected to appear at the Boksburg Magistrate Court for a bail application on Friday. The 11-year-old girl is 4 months pregnant and was raped in December, allegedly by the suspect. The girl told police that the perpetrator raped her and threatened to kill her mom, dad, and her if she told anyone. The mother of the victim further claimed that it wasn't the first time the suspect had raped the little girl. She says he first raped her when she was 6 years old.
I would like not the accused not to be given the bail. That is my main point and the reason we are here. Because my child's life is paused at this moment. She's worried. She can't go to school because she don't want her schoolmates to find out. She's stressed. Like my daughter's life is on pause. I want him also his life to be on pause until we go to the hearing and everything. We deserve justice, what she did to my daughter.
The Peter Mokaba region of the ANC in Limpopo says preparations are underway to begin with its regional elective conference today in Polokwane. The conference was postponed last week due to unresolved disputes raised by branch members. ANC members marched to the party's provincial headquarters last week to seek an intervention on disputes, bringing the conference to a halt. Over 150 ANC delegates from the Polokwane, Molemole, Blouberg and Sefako Makgatho sub-regions were expected to be part of the conference. ANC spokesperson in the Peter Mokaba region, Adolphe Rapetswa, says the remaining disputes have been escalated to the party's National Dispute Resolution Committee.
As the region, we are pleased with the number of disputes which were dealt with by the National Dispute Resolution Committee. This was the last process to be followed for us to consider for a conference. Only few branches are remaining and we should be concluded today by the afternoon. Registration will commence from today. As soon as registration is complete, the conference will start.
The United States has signed an agreement with the United Arab Emirates to build the largest artificial intelligence campus outside America. The lucrative deal is one of many sealed during President Donald Trump's tour of the Gulf region. The BBC's Lise Doucet has the details.
Every state in this Gulf region has its own priorities. For the United Arab Emirates, it's clear that they want to be a world leader when it comes to artificial intelligence, and they lobbied very hard before President Trump came to this region to lift the Biden-era restrictions on export controls of AI chips. And now they have signed this deal to create this campus here and to continue to develop this technology and many others.
Recapping the top story, Dr. Nandi Pama Gudumala's legal team say they will study the full judgment and possibly appeal at the Constitutional Court. Magudumala's bid to have her arrest declared unlawful has been dismissed by the Supreme Court of Appeal. I am Ondelambana for SAFM News Headlines at 2:30.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Marawai. Why did you think you could change your tire when you've never even changed a light bulb successfully? Marawai. Why not switch to Santam and get 24/7 roadside assistance to get you moving again? Choose the insurer with cover options that suit your needs. Call 0860 444 444 or SMS cover to 36101. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
The Bees are fairly impressed with their run this season, but they want to win at home to concretize a top half position.
That's a crack. Oh, what a crack. That's Brentford for you. There you go.
Yet the Cottagers want to be remembered for an away win during their penultimate game of the season.
Hey! He's got an introduction! Harry Wilson makes it 2-1 to Fulham. Now go home! Off you go!
This is the Premier League. Witness the mouth-watering clash between Brentford FC and Fulham FC on Sunday 18 May at 3:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and stories that shape the continent. Join us as we celebrate African pride, unity, and progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
call on you. I wake you up in me, deep, deep in the center of my being. You are indeed a reflection of me. You are my reflection. With you, I have no fear. With you, there's nothing I can't bear. You are my weapon against enemies. Sometimes people think I'm crazy, cause with you, I see no boundaries. A no-limit soldier. A woman who's bear fruit and named him after you. Love with you is real. I have no doubt. Cause every time I speak, I always think of you. I think of your eyes. I always think of you. And I think of your smile. Do you ever think of me? Think of my child. I always dream of you. Being in your arms.
Osin Lade coming through. My Reflections is the title of this particular track. Interesting individual. Just interesting. Interesting aesthetically when you come across him. And then when you engage him and the energy that comes from him. Very calm, very cerebral, very, but the visual representation also very intriguing. That is how we kick off the 2 o'clock hour on this fine Friday afternoon with a little bit of Osin Lade coming your way. It's just gone 10 past 2 o'clock. And we're going to be catching up with one of the honorees from last night's 100 Most Reputable Africans for 2025. He is a Hall of Famer when it comes to global African branding. He's an authority in that space. He's one of the leading advocates for, brand-led African renaissance, a trailblazing marketer, and recognized as one of the most influential and reputable Africans to ever walk this earth. A lot of people on his social media pages, when he posted from the event last night, a lot of people said, well, this makes sense. Never would have doubted it. Tebe Galafeng joins us on the line, Brand Africa founder and author. How are you doing this afternoon?
Very good. It's a long time.
It has been a long time, but it almost always feels like I see you every day because you're quite engaged on social media, so one gets a sense of what you're up to on any given day.
Well, not everything I do, right? But everything towards the goal of moving the continent forward, I'll put up on social media, correct?
Absolutely. Is that I just want to see if maybe we can change your line quickly. Just take a quick pause and then we'll come back and change Tebe's line for a different line, and then we'll see.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.6 FM in Tshwane.
Wow, cool catch. Alma thinks Alma's friends are great.
Thanks, Elmo.
I like how you cheer and encourage your friends, son.
Alma likes it too.
Elmo, you are special. Who you are matters
Because we're all special. Tune in to see what makes you special for the all-new episodes of Takalani Sesame. Weekdays at 3 p.m. on SABC2.
Blue Diamonds are craving for 3 points, but Amatax believe in their football intelligence to triumph. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. It's more than just 90 minutes. Catch the joy of Mzansi's women's football. JVW Ladies FC versus the University of Pretoria Ladies FC. The Saturday 17 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Save and win a car with Spar, for real. Stand to win one of 50 fiery red Hyundai Grand i10 sedans. Buy any participating products and swipe your rewards card to enter. Get 450-gram Bacoma Wheat Bix, original only, for $24.99, plus 50 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Or 200-gram Baker's Murray biscuits. Buy any two for 30 Rand, plus 50 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Price is valid until 19 May, while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
We are live streaming, by the way, on all of our social media platforms at SAFM Radios, where you can find us if you want to check out the visuals of the show. We are catching up with Brand Africa founder and author, and of course, honoree of the 100 most reputable Africans for 2025, Thebe Ikalafeng. So it was no surprise, Thebe. I was saying that it was no surprise when
Bridget, Bridget. Of course, it's supposed to be a surprise.
No, I mean, when you think about 100 most reputable Africans, there are some names that jump at you. And yesterday we were in conversation with the organization about the evening. And when certain names jumped at us, the likes of Phumzile Mlamgancuka, the likes of Dr. Precious, the likes of yourself, we thought, that makes sense.
I appreciate that. Very kind of you.
Yeah, that makes sense. You've spoken about this before, but for someone who's just only now becoming awakened to, brand Thebe Ikalafeng, why is it of so importance to you to advocate positively for Brand Africa?
Well, we have nowhere else to go, do we? Because, when you walk around the streets in Oxford, somewhere else, and you see another African, they nod at you and they say, we are kins, we are family. But now think about this continent. 19% accounts for 19% of the world, but only 2% of the GDP. And when you look at the work that I've done the last 15 years on brands, out of the top 100 most admired brands in the continent, only 20% are made in Africa. So now you know the challenge we have. The challenge we have is we don't love ourselves, we don't appreciate ourselves, we don't buy ourselves, and we don't have money. So, and nobody is going to save us but us. And that is why I've dedicated most of my life to try and contribute to changing the narrative about the continent. Because also when they speak about the continent, it is always in the negative. It is always in dark spaces. It is always about the poverty, the illness. It's always about the wars. It's always about the disunity. It's never ever in other ways the way they speak about America, about enterprising, about Germany, about engineering excellence, about Japan, about resilience, about the British tradition. With us, it's always in a negative story. And I think only us as Africans, we're the ones who can change that narrative. And that's what I do. But I do it through a branded lens because that's my area of expertise. Because I think it's Mother Teresa once said, each and every one of us must do what we can where we are with what we have. So what do I have? I have training and understanding on brands. And I know that brands are how countries create jobs, how they create industries, and how they create the tax base to be able to fund their own development. And that's why my focus is on brands.
When you speak about that data, that, Africa makes up 19% of the world, 2% of the world's global GDP, but only 20% of the global brands are made in Africa. That speaks a lot about the potential buying capacity of Africans. And then the question becomes, what needs to be done to change the perception from the inside out? Because only we can then be the agents of repositioning and reshaping, perhaps to some degree even reclaiming our own standing in global economies. And
Well, and I'm glad you use the word reclaiming because that's the big narrative, the big word that I use. I always say that we need to reclaim our culture. We need to reclaim our narrative. We need to reclaim our economy. And let's go from a culture perspective. Is everybody else is benefiting from our culture? They'll create the Wakanda there out of America. They'll create fashion out of Paris and all those using our creativity, our talent. They will externalize our talent as well as our money, and we're not benefiting from that. We need to reclaim our narrative. They're telling stories about us, but we're not telling stories about ourselves. And stories, and they've created the vehicles to be able to do that, whether it's CNN, BBC, or Al Jazeera, or RTT. We have no channels of telling our stories. And instead, we are being reactive and sometimes passive about it and not doing anything. That's why they tell us a story that we are creating genocides, we are poor, we are indebted, we are corrupt, and all those. And we can't respond. We're not responding. We need to reclaim our economies, because once we're able to reclaim our economy, once we're able to do like China. China is 17% of the world's population and 17% of the world's GDP. America is 5% of the population and 28% of the GDP. So that's why America can use the leverage of the economy to direct the agenda and to direct our self-interest. We do not have our cards, as Donald Trump will put it. We don't have cards in our hands because we only have so little in our pocket. So once we reclaim our economy, we will be able, like China, who's got as many people, as much money as many people, be able to say, no, not on your terms, but on equal terms.
Is there a light, like a glimmer of light, though, in the horizon, Tebe, especially when you see, and I know you and I, we exchange a lot with creatives from multiple sectors. When you look at the work that's been done by creative kids across different African territories right now, does it give a glimmer of hope, perhaps, that there is that resurgence, there is that awakening, there is that conscientizing of Africa by Africans, made in Africa for Africans?
I think there is. I think look at the confidence of Maxhosa, with a name called Maxhosa, made in Africa, or Maxhosa Africa, going to open a shop in New York. Look at that confidence. That confidence says we are now at peace with who we are. We are confident of who we are. And look at what Amapiano is doing, a Black Coffee and a Burna Boy out in the rest of the world. What are we saying? We are saying that our creativity is now of equal stature. We can also be paid as much. And look at, so from a creative space, it's always been an open area. A Nelson Makamo being able to charge in thousands of dollars. So, and I'm just put 3 areas of creativity. So matter of fact, where you are seeing Africa's renaissance, you are seeing it from from the creative space. Because in the creative space, the creatives are generally younger, bolder, and more daring. And they don't see any barriers and borders, and they are and I think that is the entry level. And then, of course, the second part of the asking if there's a glimmer of hope. Once the AFCFTA is realized properly, we'll now be able to open the borders to trade, to be able to move around the continent. If you look at what Ethiopian airlines have done, they are probably one of the top 15, 20 airlines in the world. They've got over 135 fleet. I think maybe all of Africa put together is Ethiopian Airlines. And what that does is it means that we can now move around on our own propellers around the world and around the continent. And that is important. But now what we need to do, the final hurdle, is for us to create more made in Africa brands, so that we are able to share, we are able to create the money and the capital base to be able to hire more people, generate tax, use the tax to fund our own development agenda.
Absolutely. In the context of South Africa, and there's so much playing out right now, obviously from a geopolitical perspective. And in the context of South Africa, if we had to bring it a little bit closer to the individual, right? Because we all become walking ambassadors of our countries and of our people. Are we at times our own biggest obstacle?
We've always been our biggest obstacles. We have always been the ones who reject who we are more than anybody else. We've always been the ones who don't assert who we are. The fact that we put a premium on anything not made in Africa tells you that we hate ourselves more than anybody else hates us, and they are taking advantage of who we are. So now, in the context of the geopolitics that you are saying now, what is Donald Trump saying? Donald Trump saying that I am putting forward a national agenda. I'm putting forward my country, the United States of America, first. I am being patriotic. And that is not a bad thing at all. Because if all of us are selfish, if all of us are patriots, ultimately we will all be able to compete on an equal footing. Ultimately, you'll be able to say, like China, that if this is how you want to do it, then I'm gonna new find friends, or I'm gonna pull out from you. So what we don't have now, because we don't have equal sets of cards, we are seen more as beggars. I was saying to somebody earlier that Sankara once said that he who feeds you controls you. That the challenge now we have is because we are not feeding ourselves. I mean, think about it from a literal perspective. We importing $115 billion of food every year. Yet we have 65% of the world's arable land. Why should we be importing food? When we have so much land, we should be growing our own food. We should be exporting foods. We shouldn't be asking for food. And so in the context of the geopolitics, this is an opportunity it's a golden opportunity that Donald Trump has given the continent. Because the golden opportunity that he's given the continent is you look to yourself, look to your own resources, look back and ask yourself, why can't you solve your own problems?
Yeah.
Because I agree with Donald Trump. Why should America be the charity of the world? Of course, you can go back and say, oh, yes, but 500 years ago, he took a whole lot of us in the ship and moved us there and never paid us for 400 years. But we are not there anymore. We're here now. Yes, we are starting a 100-meter race 400 meters back while everybody else is in front. It's fine. Let us now pick up the pace from where we are, because you cannot keep looking back, because every time you look back, they go past you.
In our final moments, you highlight that it is a golden opportunity, and a lot of glass half full analysts have pointed this out as well since the beginning of the trade wars. But a golden opportunity can be squandered if African leaders are not ready to utilize it and to see it for what it presents itself to be. Are we in a position to see it for what it presents itself to be and to maximize on it?
I think the problem that we have here is we do not hold African leaders to account. So we have given them a free rein, and they have looked at their back pockets instead of looking at the pockets of everybody else in the countries. And that is the challenge that we face. That unfortunately we do not have the right people leading us. We have people who are more self-interested than people who are patriotic about the country. I think that's the challenge that we face as a continent. But you're beginning to see places like Burkina Faso with Traore, what he's doing in a way, whether you like him or not, whether you like his approach or not. But this is the guy who, in a couple of years, have said to France, why do I need to pay you half of my money and put it into your banks in France? Why can't I use that money to develop my own country? There's a guy who said, why can't I grow things here? Why can't I pay my debts with our own money? So there is a crop of new leadership coming up who are asking questions differently, whether it's in Senegal or even not just the old ones, but even in Rwanda. Some people will call him lots of names, but the one name that you cannot call him is that the man focuses his interest in Rwanda. How he does it, the people of Rwanda will tell you. Every time I'm in Rwanda and I ask them different questions, they always say to me, look at how peaceful we are.
Yeah.
Look at how beautiful, how clean our country is. Look at all those. So I choose to focus on those positives and say that let us find pockets of excellence and let's share those across the continent.
Very interesting, especially on that last leadership, because the question has often been, do you want a benevolent dictator who gets things done? Or do you want free reign of liberation where you are then diving through 1,000,001 potholes? But it's always up for debate at any dinner table. Tebe Ikalafeng, thank you so much for the time and congratulations once again. Honoree of the 100 most reputable Africans for 2025. It's just gone 2:30 on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga. The headline news and then Nalibali.
Thank you, Bridget. On the news headlines, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa says the failure to pass the 2025 national budget is a dark cloud that still hangs over the Republic. The retabling of the 2025 budget is scheduled for next week, Wednesday. Dr. Nandipama Gudumana's legal team say they will study the full judgment and possibly appeal at the Constitutional Court. Gudumana's bid to have her arrest declared unlawful has been dismissed by the Supreme Court of Appeal, and Israel is reported to have launched a large-scale military operation in the far north of the Gaza Strip. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
And welcome to Nali Bali. Did you know that birds are some of the most amazing creatures on earth? Some birds can fly higher than mountains, while others can't fly at all. Did you know that ostriches are the fastest running birds? Or that parrots can learn to talk? And guess what? The smallest bird in the world, the hummingbird, is as tiny as your thumb. Birds come in all shapes, sizes, and colors, and each one is special in its own way. Today's story is all about these wonderful feathered friends. So sit back and listen closely and let's begin our adventure in the world of birds. Today's story is called Opela, written by Makubalo Ikaneng. But before we listen to today's story, let's all get up and... Long ago, there was a family of birds who loved to sing to an old man named Mulapo. They sang to him while he planted his crops, and they sang to him while he fed them the grain he had harvested. From morning to evening, they sang. Opela, the youngest bird, did not like doing things unless there was a reward. He was always the last to wake up and would make any excuse to avoid doing chores to help his family. He also did not like singing to Mulapo. It was only when the old man gave the birds grain that Opela would swoop down and join them to eat. He only sang once his stomach was full.
Opela,
Mother Bird said,
Opela, you need to help others even when there's no reward. Kindness attracts kindness, my boy.
But Opela didn't really listen to what his mother was saying and continued to behave badly. One day, a big hailstorm destroyed Mulapo's crops. When the bird family came to Mulapo's farm the next day, they found him looking sadly at the damage. The birds started singing. As Mulapo wiped away his tears, he said,
I'm sorry, but I can't give you grain today. The storm has destroyed my crops.
Opela was angry.
We should never sing to that old man again,
he said. But his mother said,
Mulapo was good to us when times were good. We have to keep singing to him. We cannot turn our backs on him now that things are bad. We need to be loyal, even when there's no grain.
The next day, the Bat family went to sing to Mulapo, but Opela did not join them. When they returned home without food, Opela said,
I am going to find someone else to sing to.
The following day, Opela flew out of the nest and started looking for people to sing to. As he flew towards the nearby town, he saw a group of women washing their clothes on the banks of the river. Opela started singing. But the women were talking and did not notice him. Opela was angry and flew toward the village. There he saw some chickens in a cage. They were big and kept pecking grain from the ground. Opela started singing, hoping that the chickens will join him, but the chickens did not sing.
Good morning, fellow birds. I see that you have lots of food. Where did you get it?
Opela said with a big grin.
We're chickens. The cage owner gave us food.
One chicken explained.
Did you have to sing to get the food?
Opela asked.
No, we don't have to sing. The cage owner gives us food every morning and evening.
The chicken said.
You are very lucky. My family and I have to sing to get food.
Opela said.
No, you're the lucky one. Nobody stops you from flying around. We're never allowed to leave this cage. And sometimes the owner takes our eggs and doesn't return them,
said the chicken. Before Opela could ask more questions, he felt something hit his head.
What? They're throwing stones at me,
squawked Opela as he saw a group of children running towards him. Quickly, Opela flapped his wings and tried to fly away, but the children chased him. Opela tried to fly to his family tree, but the blow to his head was making him feel dizzy. Then Opela saw Mulapo's yard. He flew to the yard, hoping that his family would be there to help him. But his family was not there, and the children were still shouting and throwing stones at him. Opela thought his life was about to end. He wished he had not flown away from his family. He wished he had stayed with them and sang to Mulapo every day. Opela felt himself dropping from the sky. Just then, Mulapo stepped out of his house. He saw what was happening.
Stop chasing that bird,
he shouted at the children as Opela crashed through the branches of the tree and fell unconscious to the ground.
Oh no, poor little bird. Poor little bird.
Opela heard a voice from far off. Slowly, he opened his eyes.
Where am I?
He croaked. Amazingly, he heard the voice of his mother.
We came to sing to Mulapo and find you here,
she said.
Mulapo led us to you. What happened? And how on earth did you get here?
Opela told his family how he had gone to the village, about the chickens and being chased by the children. Lastly, he told them how Mulapo had chased the children away.
I'm sorry. I behaved badly. I should not always expect rewards for doing something good. Mulapo helped me without expecting anything,
Opela said. And since that day, Opela woke up early every morning, did his chores, and joined his family to sing to Mulapo. And soon enough, Mulapo had new crops and grain to share with Opela's family. And so we come to the end of another Nalibali story time. Today's story was called Opela, written by Makubalo Ikaneng. Did you know that reading and telling stories to children at home can help them do better at school? If you want free stories to read to your children or for your children to enjoy on their own, visit the Nalibali website www.nalibali.org or Mobi site www.nalibali.mobi. You will find stories in 11 South African languages, as well as tips for reading and sharing stories with your children to grow their potential. Also look out for the bilingual Nalibali Reading for Enjoyment supplement with great children's stories and activities, available in newspapers. Nalibali, it starts with a story.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105 FM in Pietermaritzburg.
He's short, loud, and definitely not a licensed therapist, but he's asking the hard questions. It's Heart to Heart with Kevin, the only talk show where the guests spill the tea and Kevin spills the jokes. Real talk, real laughs, and real short host. Heart to Heart with Kevin, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on S3.
TSG believe if they double their efforts, they will close the curtain with huge smiles. But the Reds are on standby to cheers to an incredible season. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Witness TSG Hoffenheim against Bayern München on Saturday, 17 May at 3 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC 3, and on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
These are the weekend shows on SAFM. Music of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. The Weekend View with Bongiwe Zwane. The Jet Set Breakfast with Michelle Constant. Seasons with Khomotso KG Mwekezi. The Soundtrack of Your Life with Ernest Pillay. Weekend Soundowner Classics with Kutlwano Masote. Spotlight with Zai Khan. The Weekend with John Gerika. Shifting Your Lens with Bertha Charuma. This is SAFM. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Okie dokie, we are wrapping up the show. It's Friday, and you know on Fridays we take things nice and slow, but in that meaningful way, right? So if you've missed the show today, had a fabulous conversation with Mom Barbara Masigela. You can always rewind back on our podcast around that conversation. Happened in the first hour of the show. And then we also caught up with Marlies van Zyl, who's the CEO of Aspire Art, and we were dissecting a conversation around South African-born Marlene Dumas, who just broke the world record and became the most expensive living female artist, having sold a piece for 246 million rand this past Wednesday at the Christie's live auction. And so now we are wrapping up the show with another artistic conversation, and we're catching up with Latitude's co-director and curator, Lucy McGregor joins us ahead of the Latitude's Art Fair. That McGarry joins us ahead of the Latitude's Art Fair, which is happening. I don't know why suddenly, Lucy, I called you McGregor for some reason. McGarry joins us. The art fair is happening on the 23rd until the 25th of May. And it really is an art fair like no other. It brings together artists and exhibitors from all across the continent, and they come through to Shepstone Gardens, which is a wonderful venue here in Johannesburg. How are you doing this afternoon?
Oh, I'm so well. Thank you so much for having me on today.
It's only but a pleasure. Only but a pleasure. Much anticipation. Already one knows within the artistic community, practitioners, appreciators, collectors, novices. Everyone's very, very excited about the return of the annual Latitudes Art Fair.
I think we can all feel it in the air. We're so excited. You know, it's a nice distraction at the beginning of winter, and also we're so grateful that the rain has stopped. So we're hoping that Johannesburg has just been raining forever, it seems. But the weather's beautiful, so, you know, to come out on a sunny winter's day with blue skies and just have every single one of your senses excited is going to be, we sold out on our Saturday tickets already.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. Let's look at the role of Latitudes Art Fair, because you guys essentially, were initially an online platform representing artists, and you are evolving. Oh, we've just lost Lucy, but we're trying to get her back on the line again. Once we reestablish connection there, then we'll continue that conversation. But if you also want to have a little bit of a sneak peek of Latitudes, you can log on to latitudesartfair.com and have a look. They started off as an online platform representing artists, and they've since evolved in recent years to also just presenting the work in different spaces. As soon as we get her back on the line, then we'll continue our conversation. Okay, we've got Lucy McGarry back, Latitudes co-director and curator. I was saying it's been interesting to see the evolution of Latitudes, right? And I wanted to drill in perhaps on the role of your online platform and by extension as well the art fair and the role and the significance that it plays in the artistic landscape within the context of Africa.
Oh, thank you. So, we started our fair in 2019, and we did our first fair on Nelson Mandela Square, and it was a huge success. We had about 7,000 visitors, and our kind of, I suppose, unique selling point was the fact that we were very much about emerging voices. So that these sort of younger galleries to mid-tier galleries, and then also, very importantly, independent artists. So artists were able to exhibit alongside galleries, which is actually not a model that's repeated anywhere in the world. And then we were planning towards our next fair in 2020, but unfortunately COVID came along and, scuppered everyone's plans. But in that time, we were actually a COVID success story because we thought, what are we going to do with this time behind our screens? And we put our minds to building our online platform. So the concept of the online platform is to gather all arts practitioners on the continent and have that as the focus for the online marketplace. So people have their own logins and they're able to upload. So the platform kind of grows exponentially, even while we're sleeping, it's growing. And we were able to provide a lifeline for many artists during COVID because we connected artists to collectors all around the world. And then we quickly realized that we actually have to set up a whole logistics network on the ground, which we now have really kind of fine-tuned, which is amazing. And so I think, we're a completely hybrid event. So everything we do in the real is then mirrored online so that the whole world can kind of be aware and have access to what we're doing.
And the spaces that you bring to life as well. You guys have the Art Fair Essays, which is part of the program. And these explore interesting relationships, unpack some of the artistic conversations that are going to be happening for the 2025 calendar.
Oh, fantastic. So I think what we're going to have a lot of beautiful talks programs, which are actually very much in terms of conversation. We're sort of framing our talks program around Johannesburg hosting the G20 later this year, and it's kind of turning attention to South Africa in terms of leadership, innovation, And we believe that our art sector, our creative sector, led by the visual arts, offers a space for this, for us to come together. So we've got these fabulous talks, and one does have to book for them, even though they are free if you've already got a ticket. But we've got people from all over the world, because it's sort of about South Africa, Africa, and our relationship to the world in terms of the visual arts. So we've got people flying in from Korea, from Ethiopia, Nigeria, all to come and speak about what's happening on the ground in their countries, but then also how we can find ways to really exchange, whether it be artist residencies or curatorial exchanges. And then kind of what leads through on that is our theme for the fair this year is co-production. And it's very much about how Latitudes works. Everything we do is all about collaboration, and you'll really get a sense of that at the fair. A few of our projects, we've got a fabulous project from Botswana, where all the arts practitioners in Bots have collaborated to come together to do a special project and a showcase, really, of what's happening there on the ground. And in fact, we did the same thing. We previewed that in Gaborone, and it actually opened last night. So we're about kind of setting up these relationships for artists in their own countries. So we actually produced the whole exhibition there last night, and then it'll be coming to the fair. And that's really to ignite the sector in Botswana. And we plan on doing that all over the continent with RMB's very generous support, because they have interest in other cities and countries on the continent.
Yeah. As you mentioned, sort of fostering that meaningful engagement with other territories on the continent, the likes of Botswana. I think we never really, you know what, I'm looking at the commercials about to cut me, Lucy. Let me just go to commercial break. I'll be back.
Do you want an experience of a lifetime? Where every day is filled with challenges of providing Lisa Vanderpump curated experiences while dealing with rivalries, romances, and misadventures. It's drama at Vanderpump's French estate. Chantel, Rosabelle, and the staff can't wait to give you a front row seat to all the drama. Catch Vanderpump Villa, Saturdays on S3 at 8:30 p.m. S3 open up.
The Bees are fairly impressed with their run this season, but they want to win at home to concretize a top half position.
That's a crack. Oh, what a crack. That's Brentford for you. There you go.
Yet the Cottagers want to be remembered for an away win during their penultimate game of the season.
Hey! He's done it again! Action! Harry Wilson makes it 2-1 to Fulham. Now go home! Off you go!
This is the Premier League. Witness the mouth-watering clash between Brentford FC and Fulham FC on Sunday 18 May at 3:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Every person, no matter who you are, what music you're inclined to listen to, and what you do with your weekends, you need a weekend playlist. It's that musical mix of music that accompanies the lazy weekends, whether catching up with friends and family or just taking some time to reflect. Tune in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 on SAFM.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
All right, we are catching up with Lucy, who's the Latitudes co-director and curator ahead of the Latitudes Art Fair, which is happening 23rd to 25th of May. And that's going to be out at Shepstone Gardens here in Johannesburg. If you happen to be in Joburg at the time, it would be lovely for you to try and secure yourself a ticket. Much coveted, these tickets are, and the event sells out very, very quickly indeed. As we were going into the break, I was going to ask you, in terms of the work that you're doing now, on the rest of the continent. You mentioned Botswana, for instance, and engaging an exhibition there that opened last night. I think a lot of us actually don't sort of give much thought to what the artistic landscape in other territories of the continent look like. We're so honed in what's happening in South Africa that we forget to explore outside of our borders. I never would have thought, for instance, to even cast my eye at a Botswana collective, out of just curiosity. But paint us a picture of what's happening. I know Nigeria is now slowly building a very robust artistic community and art conversation there. But, apart from like a Nigeria, Senegal, places of that nature, I think the rest of us are really blind to the rest of the continent.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for many years, South African collectors have also been quite focused on only buying artwork by South African artists, but really it's due to art fairs, I believe, quite largely, that this narrative is changing. So, as you mentioned, Nigeria has just a huge cultural scene, and there is an art fair there in Lagos every year that happens. Ghana also has a very sophisticated art scene. And what's really lovely is that, you can see by gathering the artworks together, so you'll start to tease out what the narratives are. Like, for example, the Botswana focus, a lot of sort of heritage-based narratives, and quite experimental practices actually in Botswana, which is super exciting. And yeah, I mean, Botswana is so close, to us, but as you say, so far at the very same time. But RMB is really helping us in that regard, because they also see the fantastic potential of this kind of cross-border cultural collaboration.
For this year's exhibition and offering, you guys always have something extra special up your sleeves. What can folks look forward to?
I think, if you are looking for new voices, and our annual project index for independent artists is fabulous. It's actually curated by an artist this year, Bonolo Kavula, and she's brought together the most beautiful show around identity and materiality. But then where she's going to be based, under what we call the glass marquee, will be all independent artists. So visitors are able to come and actually meet the artists in person with their work there, and have some fascinating discussions. So we've curated that as a special feature this year. And I think on the other side of that, one always kind of, we're inclined to always support the new and the young and the fresh. But what we believe is important is also to kind of look back at history. And so we do a project every year called Essay, which is kind of looking back at artists of an older generation that maybe haven't had many opportunities to exhibit. And this year we have a very beautiful sculptural exhibition by an artist, Amali von Maltitz. And this is going to be a very special treat for people, because we've paired her sculptures with the beautiful charcoal drawings of Sydney Khumalo. And so this is really, I think, a standout show for people. And then throughout the gardens, we've got an outdoor climate focus, looking at really water. But a beautiful plastic ocean series is by an artist, Dutch artist called Toza Sharp. And then a South African artist, Nina Barnett, is going to be doing an interactive installation, and that's actually brought to you by the Dutch Cultural Forum in South Africa. Wonderful. So that's very exciting, yes. And then, I think people will be really drawn to a solo exhibition by Mary Sibande.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
You think? You think.
Exactly.
We have to leave it there for this afternoon, but I appreciate the time with you. That was Lucy McGarry, who is the Latitudes co-director and curator. Always one of those art fairs that makes me very popular amongst my friends, because then they're always going, can I be your plus one? We will see you on the 23rd to the 25th of May at Shepstone Gardens for that fair. From myself and my team, thank you for choosing to be in conversation with us this week. You could have been anywhere. You could have chosen any station. You chose to be right here, having conversations that move the nation. Hopefully you get to have a bit of a break over the next 2 days, rest and take things nice and easy. You know, on weekends, we bring you the very best in cultural and musical offerings on the station, so there's absolutely no need for you to go anywhere. Ashraf is coming through 3 to 6. Inshallah, God willing, we'll do it again.
Thank you, Bridget. Top stories at 3. Ramaphosa speaks on the budget not being passed, and Magudumana's lawyers disappointed at latest court ruling. For SAFM News, I am Onde Lambana, and a very good afternoon. ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa says the failure to pass the 2025 national budget is a dark cloud that still hangs over the Republic. The retabling of the 2025 budget is scheduled for next week, Wednesday. Ramaphosa is speaking at the induction of an ANC Provincial Executive Committee members in Kimberley. The 2025 budget was presented by Minister Enoch Godongwana in March after it was first postponed in February. Ramaphosa says leaders should in the future handle such matters better.
We need to look below that cloud and see whether there is a silver lining that can help us to handle these matters better forward. And that silver lining is to enable us as leaders, as South Africans as well, to immerse ourselves, to get us to delve into understanding our national budget, to get us into fully understanding our provincial budgets. That is what I see as a silver lining.
Dr. Nandipha Magudumana's legal team say they will study the full judgment and possibly appeal at the Constitutional Court. Magudumana's bid to have her arrest declared unlawful has been dismissed by the Supreme Court of Appeal. NPA has welcomed the judgment, which has been delivered this morning. Magudumana's attorney, Mashini Mutloung, says they remain resolute despite the judgment.
We are dismayed. We should be dismayed naturally, but despondent, I don't think so. We still remain resolute. We still have faith in our case, that we have a meritorious case. Obviously, we have yet to receive the judgment. We'll have to study the full judgment, get to understand how the court arrived at the conclusion that it did.
Some community members outside the Boksburg Magistrate Court holding placards that demand no bail for the 29-year-old suspect who raped and impregnated an 11-year-old girl. The man's formal bail application is expected to be heard today in Boksburg, Gauteng. The 11-year-old is 4 months pregnant and was allegedly raped by the suspect in December. The family is waiting for DNA results to confirm that he's the culprit. 2-year-old girl Kamukhelo Ntakong, who died in a shack fire last year in Nelma Piers, east of Pretoria,